When we first bought the house, I thought it was the most beautiful gift anyone could give. It wasn't just bricks and wood, it was a promise, a symbol of the life we were building together. I remember running my fingers along the kitchen counters, imagining the family dinners we'd share, the memories we would create in every corner. Everyone said we were the perfect couple. He was charming, attentive, and made me feel like I was the only woman in the world. I believed in us. I believed in him. For years, the house was my safe place, the evidence of our love, our commitment. I never questioned the stories he told me or the silences he wrapped around certain parts of his past. After all, love meant trust, didn't it? But looking back now, I realize the house wasn't a gift. It was a secret wrapped in a lie, and it was only a matter of time before everything collapsed right beneath my feet. It started on a rainy afternoon when I was cleaning out the kitchen drawer, the one where we stuffed unopened mail and old receipts. I found an envelope tucked between a stack of expired coupons. It was addressed to him but had someone else's name scribbled underneath, Carla Benton. Curious, I tore it open. It was a loan payment notice from a bank I'd never heard of, tied to a second mortgage on our house. My stomach twisted. I waited until he got home, the letter clutched tightly in my hand. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "What's this about?" He glanced at the paper, then gave a quick, dismissive laugh. "Oh, that's old, from years ago. Business stuff. You know how messy things got before we met." "Business stuff?" I repeated, not convinced. "Yeah," he said, leaning in to kiss my forehead. "Don't stress yourself over it, babe. It's nothing." I wanted to believe him. God, I needed to believe him. We had built so much together, dreams, plans, a future. I told myself it was just a leftover thread from his life before me, something insignificant. But that night, long after he fell asleep, I sat at the kitchen table staring at the envelope. My mind ran in circles, piecing together small things I'd overlooked. How he always got edgy when talking about finances, the way he changed the subject whenever someone mentioned his past. I tried to shake it off. Everyone has secrets, right? It's part of being human. It doesn't mean they're dangerous. Still, something about that name, Carla Benton, gnawed at me. It didn't sound like a business partner. It sounded personal. The next morning, when he left for work, I pulled out my laptop and typed the name into a search engine. Nothing solid came up at first, just a few social media profiles, none linked to him. But then, buried on the second page of results, I found a court document, Benton versus Whitaker. My husband's last name, the blood drained from my face. It was dated 3 years before we married. A lawsuit for division of marital assets. My hands trembled as I clicked the link, and there in black and white it stated plainly, property in question, residential home at 2187 Maple Drive, our address, our house, the same house he had given me as a wedding gift, promising it was ours to start a life together. My heart pounded against my ribs, each beat screaming louder than the last. Maybe there was a logical explanation. Maybe it was all over, like he said. Maybe, but deep down I knew. This was just the beginning. I told myself to forget it, to trust him, to believe that some things were better left in the past. But the truth gnawed at me. Every corner of the house, the walls, the floors, the very air, felt different now, like they were holding memories I didn't belong to. It was as if I had moved into someone else's dream, mistaking it for my own. A week later, while sorting through another pile of mail, I noticed a thin envelope, the paper worn and smudged from the rain. It wasn't addressed to him this time, it was for Carla Benton. My hands hesitated. Opening someone else's mail felt wrong, but the ache in my gut, the doubt curling tighter each day, left me no choice. Inside was a debt collection notice, threats of legal action, unpaid loans, secured by our house. My vision blurred for a moment as the words sank in. This wasn't history. This wasn't over. It was happening right now. When he walked through the door that evening, tired and smiling like nothing was wrong, I was waiting for him at the kitchen table. The envelope lay open in front of me like a wound. "What's this?" I asked quietly. He froze when he saw it. His smile faltered, replaced by a tightness around his mouth I had never noticed before. "Where did you get that?" His voice was sharp, almost defensive. "It came today," I said, addressed to her. "Why is her name still tied to our house?" He rubbed the back of his neck, pacing the small kitchen like a man trapped in a shrinking room. "It's complicated," he muttered finally. "Some old paperwork, nothing that matters now." "Doesn't matter." I pushed the paper closer to him. "They're threatening legal action against this house, against us." He slammed his palm against the table, making the salt shaker rattle. I said, "It's fine," he barked. I jumped at the sudden anger. This wasn't him, or maybe. This was the part of him I was never meant to see. He caught himself almost immediately, his voice softening into something almost desperate. "I'm sorry," he whispered, reaching for my hand. "I didn't mean to scare you. It's just, I've been under so much pressure. I'm trying to fix everything for us." I pulled my hand away. I needed answers, not apologies. Why didn't you tell me about her? I asked, my voice trembling. About the house. About everything. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and for a split second I thought he might tell me the truth. But instead he shook his head and gave a sad little smile. Because it didn't matter, he said. It's just old ghosts, you and me, that's what's real. I wanted so badly to believe him, to shove all my questions back into the dark where they came from. But that night, after he fell asleep, I sat alone at the kitchen table, the debt notice spread out in front of me. The house was silent except for the soft hum of the refrigerator and the pounding of my own heart. I thought about the way he exploded, the panic in his voice, the fear he tried to mask. I thought about the loan, the name on the deed, the lawsuit I'd stumbled across. I thought about how love was supposed to be built on trust, but ours was starting to feel like it was built on sand. And deep inside, a quiet, terrible certainty grew. He's hiding more. He's hiding something that could destroy everything. I didn't know what it was yet, but the house, this place I had once believed was my sanctuary, had become a ticking time bomb, and I had just heard it start to tick. The days that followed were uneasy, heavy with words left unspoken. He acted normal, too normal. Flowers appeared on the kitchen counter, little love notes tucked into my purse, dinners at my favorite restaurants. It was almost like he could sense the shift inside me, the crack running through my trust. And he was trying to patch it up before it broke wide open. But the more he tried to distract me, the deeper I dug into the little inconsistencies I used to ignore. One afternoon, I was walking to the mailbox when Mrs. Hannigan, our neighbor from across the street, called out to me. "Such a lovely day for a fresh start, isn't it?" she said, smiling warmly. I smiled back, unsure what she meant. "It's so good to see him happy again," she continued, nodding toward our house. After everything he went through with the divorce, well, we were all worried about him. I froze, the mail slipping from my fingers onto the driveway. "Divorce," I repeated, trying to keep my voice casual. "Oh yes," she said with a little cluck of sympathy. "Such a messy affair, poor Carla. I thought she'd fight harder to keep the house, but, well, here we are." She laughed lightly and shuffled back into her house, leaving me standing there, the sun burning on my skin, my heart pounding like a drum in my ears. He had told me he bought the house years ago, that it was his pride and joy. Not once had he ever mentioned a divorce. Not once had he said the name Carla aloud. I stumbled back inside, dropping the mail onto the kitchen counter without even looking at it. I needed to hear it from him. I needed the truth, not his carefully crafted version of it. When he came home that evening, whistling as he carried a bag of takeout, I confronted him before he even had a chance to put the keys down. "Why didn't you tell me you were married before?" I asked, voice low and steady. He blinked, the smile slipping from his face. "What are you talking about?" "Carla," I said. "The house, the divorce, all of it." For a long moment he said nothing. Then he sighed, dropping the bag of food onto the counter. "I didn't think it mattered," he said finally. "It's over. It's been over." "You lied to me," I whispered. "You made me believe we were building something new. You didn't tell me I was living in someone else's broken dreams." "It's not like that," he said, stepping closer, hands outstretched like he could pull me back from the edge. "I didn't want to hurt you. I wanted to give us a fresh start." "But it wasn't fresh," I said, backing away from him. "It was all built on top of her ashes." He looked desperate, pleading, but I saw it now, the cracks he had tried so hard to cover up. The lies weren't small. They were the foundation of everything we had. And now that foundation was crumbling beneath my feet. I didn't know what would fall next. But for the first time, I was ready to face whatever truth had been buried with it. The house felt colder after that night, or maybe it was me. Something inside had cracked wide open, and no matter how hard he tried, no matter how many apologies or explanations he gave, there was no stitching it back together. For a few days, I kept my distance. I went through the motions, making coffee, folding laundry, cooking dinner, but it all felt mechanical, detached, like I was watching my life from the outside. He tiptoed around me, careful with his words, with his touch. He knew I was slipping away. He just didn't know how fast. It was on a Thursday afternoon that I found it. I was looking for the insurance paperwork he'd asked me to locate, an easy favor, a small olive branch maybe. I pulled open the bottom drawer of his desk, a place I rarely touched. Tucked beneath a stack of old files was a thin, worn manila folder. The label read simply, "Maple Drive Settlement." My heart pounded as I flipped it open. Inside were the official documents from the divorce, and right there in black and white, it spelled out what he had never told me. The house wasn't his, it was hers. According to the settlement, Carla had been awarded full ownership of the house. No mention of a transfer, no mention of a sale, which meant, legally, this house still belonged to her. My hands shook as I sifted through the papers. There were letters from lawyers, back-and-forth negotiations, unresolved disputes over the mortgage. Nowhere did it say he had ever fully taken possession. All this time, he hadn't been giving me a new beginning. He had been giving me a stolen one. That evening, I waited for him again, sitting stiffly at the kitchen table with the folder spread open in front of me like a loaded gun. When he walked in and saw it, all the color drained from his face. "You lied," I said, voice steady cold. "You never owned this house." He dropped his keys with a loud clatter onto the floor, his hands going immediately to his temples. "I was trying to fix it," he said hoarsely. "I'm still working on it. I didn't want you to worry." "Worry?" I laughed, but it came out hollow. "I'm living in another woman's house, thinking it was mine, building my life on a lie you wrapped up in a bow and called love." He stepped forward, desperation written all over him. "I was going to fix it, I swear. I was trying to get her to sign it over. I just needed more time. But you married me anyway," I said, my voice breaking. "You brought me here into a life that wasn't even yours to give." His silence was louder than any apology he could have offered, and in that silence, I realized something even more terrifying than the lie itself. This wasn't about a house. This was about who he really was, a man willing to build a life on foundations he didn't own, who would rather lie than face the truth. I closed the folder slowly and stood up. "I don't even know who you are anymore," I whispered, and for the first time since we met, he had no words left to cover the silence between us. After that night, I moved through the house like a stranger. I barely spoke to him, and when I did, it was clipped, mechanical, just enough to keep the fragile illusion from shattering completely. But inside, I was unraveling. I started noticing little things I had overlooked before: a perfume scent in the guest bathroom that wasn't mine, a scarf stuffed into the back of the hall closet, embroidered with the initials CB, a key, an extra house key, hidden behind the loose brick near the porch, a key he never told me about. It all added up to something ugly. Something I didn't want to believe but couldn't ignore. One rainy morning, I decided to dig deeper. Literally, I remembered how Carla's name had been attached to a lot of mail that kept slipping into our box. Maybe there was a forwarding address. Maybe there was something official, something undeniable. I drove to the local courthouse, my hands shaking the entire way, and requested a search of property records for 2187 Maple Drive. It didn't take long. The clerk returned with a thin file and a puzzled look. "Funny," she said. "According to this, the property is still registered under Carla Benton. No transfer filed." "No transfer at all?" I asked, my throat dry. She shook her head. "Nope. As far as the county's concerned, Ms. Benton still owns that house." I thanked her, clutching the file like a lifeline, and stumbled back into the rain. It wasn't just an unresolved divorce. It wasn't just unfinished paperwork. He had never even tried to take ownership. I drove home in a daze, my mind spinning with the betrayal, the layers of lies stacking higher and higher. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw it, a red sedan I didn't recognize, parked casually in front of the house. Through the living room window, I caught a glimpse of him and a woman. They were standing close, too close, laughing. The woman turned slightly and my stomach dropped. It was her, Carla. She still had a key. She still had him. I stayed frozen in the car, rain drumming hard against the windshield, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. They weren't supposed to be in contact. He had sworn she was just a chapter he'd closed. But there they were, two people who had never really ended, pretending like I didn't even exist. I don't know how long I sat there, staring. Minutes, hours. Time seemed irrelevant. All I knew was that the life I thought I had, the marriage, the home, the future, was a lie stacked on another lie, balanced precariously on a truth he had desperately tried to keep hidden. He hadn't just kept the house from me, he had kept her, and I was nothing more than a guest in their unfinished story. I didn't confront him that day. I couldn't. I needed to know exactly how deep the betrayal ran before I faced him again. So I watched. Over the next few days, I became a ghost in my own home. Quiet, careful, calculating. I tracked the times he disappeared without explanation, the phone calls he ended too quickly, the sudden, secretive texts that made his face flush and his hands twitch, and then there were the signs inside the house. The guest bathroom had a new towel hanging neatly on the rack, a pale blue one embroidered with the letter C, the coffee mugs rearranged in the cabinet, 2 used ones left in the sink, even when I hadn't had coffee all day. A faint, sweet perfume lingering in the hallway when he thought I wasn't home. She wasn't just visiting, she was still here. One night, unable to sleep, I wandered into the living room and caught a faint whiff of her perfume again. It clung to the sofa like a memory, fresh and bitter. I opened the coat closet out of impulse. Buried behind my jackets was a sleek black leather jacket, definitely not mine, and stuffed into one of the pockets, a set of keys. Not to the house, but to a car. A red sedan, her car. She had access to the house whenever she wanted. She still had her place, her things, her scent woven into the very fabric of my supposed home. It hit me then. I was the intruder, not her. I was the outsider he had allowed to move into a life he had never truly ended. The next afternoon, I tested a theory. I left the house and parked down the street, out of sight, heart hammering wildly against my ribs. And sure enough, within an hour, her red sedan pulled into the driveway. She didn't knock, she didn't ring the bell. She used her own key and let herself in like she belonged there. Through the living room window, I saw her move comfortably through the house, dropping her purse on the counter, kicking off her shoes in the hallway, laughing softly when he walked into view to greet her. He didn't look guilty. He didn't look like a man trapped by mistakes. He looked happy. That was the part that hurt the most. Not the lies, not the stolen house, not even the shared life. It was the realization that I had been nothing more than a stand-in, a temporary fix for something he never really let go of. Tears blurred my vision, but I stayed hidden, watching the life they resumed without me, the life I had been foolish enough to think was mine. And as I sat there, frozen in the cold grip of betrayal, I realized something else. This wasn't just a love triangle. This was a battlefield. And I had been fighting a war I didn't even know I was in. I knew it would happen. I had seen enough to know where this road was leading, but nothing could have prepared me for the moment it actually did. It was a Friday night. I told him I had plans with a friend, an old coworker he barely remembered. I smiled, kissed his cheek, and lied so easily it scared me. Then I circled the block and parked 2 houses down, engine off, headlights dark. I waited. An hour later, her red sedan pulled up. This time, I didn't stay hidden. This time, I walked straight to the front door, heart hammering, rage boiling under my skin. It was unlocked. Of course it was. I stepped inside silently, the familiar creak of the floorboards under my feet sounding like gunshots in the silence. Their voices drifted from the living room, soft, laughing, intimate. I moved closer, careful not to alert them until I could see. There they were, sitting side by side on the couch, his arm draped casually over her shoulders, her head resting against his chest. He tilted her chin up with his fingers, fingers that had once traced promises along my skin, and kissed her. Not a hesitant, guilty kiss. A kiss full of memory, of ownership, like I had never existed. Something inside me snapped. I pushed the door fully open, letting it slam against the wall with a loud bang. They jerked apart instantly, turning toward me with twin expressions of horror. Carla's face turned pale. He stumbled to his feet, hands raised like a man facing a loaded gun. It's not what it looks like, he stammered. A bitter laugh ripped out of me, raw and broken. Not what it looks like, I echoed. Because it looks exactly like my husband kissing his first wife in the house he never even gave up. Neither of them spoke. The silence stretched, thick and choking. You lied to me, I said, my voice rising, trembling. You lied every single day, about the house, about the marriage, about her. He opened his mouth, then closed it again, helpless. Carla finally spoke, voice barely above a whisper. I didn't know. About you, you thought wrong, I snapped, cutting her off. You both did. I could see it all now, laid out plain before me. I was never meant to stay. I was a bandage, a distraction, a comfortable lie he told himself so he wouldn't have to face the wreckage he never cleaned up, and I had built my life on the quicksand of his unfinished past. Without another word, I turned and walked out the door, the cold night air slamming into me like a wall. Behind me, I heard him calling my name, but I didn't look back, not this time. Some betrayals are so pure, so absolute, that they burn every bridge behind you without needing a match. And he had burned his last chance the moment his lips touched hers. The next few days passed in a blur. I stayed at a cheap motel on the edge of town, the kind with flickering neon signs and curtains that didn't quite close all the way. I didn't tell anyone where I was. I turned off my phone. I needed silence. I needed space to think without his voice clawing at my guilt, without her scent clinging to my memories. Mostly, I needed to breathe. On the second night, I sat on the stiff motel bed, a battered legal pad in my lap, trying to make a list. Stay or leave, fight or walk away. Forgive or never look back. My hands trembled too much to hold the pen steady. He called, dozens of times, left voicemails, pleading, apologizing, making promises he had no right to make anymore. I love you, he said in one message, voice raw and broken. It didn't mean anything. I was confused. Please just come home. We can fix this. Home. The word felt so hollow now it echoed inside me, rattling around like a bad joke. There was no home left for me there. But leaving wasn't simple, either. The house I thought was mine, wasn't in my name. The marriage, the vows I clung to were tangled up in a web of lies and unfinished business. If I walked away, I would walk away with nothing but the clothes on my back and the memories that now cut deeper than knives. I wasn't just losing a man. I was losing a future I had already built inside my heart. I went to see a lawyer the next morning, clutching the divorce papers I had found. She looked over them carefully, her brow furrowing deeper with every page she turned. I hate to tell you this, she said finally, folding her hands on the desk, but legally you have very few rights. If the property was never transferred and the prior marriage wasn't fully dissolved, you might not even be recognized as the rightful spouse. I stared at her numb. You mean, we're not legally married? She gave a tight, apologetic smile. It's complicated, but technically, no. My world tilted, the ground slipping under my feet. I had stood in a white dress, looked him in the eyes, and promised forever, and none of it had been real. It wasn't even my life to fight for. Later that night, I sat in my car outside the house, his house, the windows glowing warm and golden in the early evening light. I could see him through the glass, pacing, checking his phone, staring out the window like he was waiting for me to appear. But I didn't move. I didn't go to him, because I knew now. No matter how much I loved him, no matter how much I had lost, there was no fixing something that had never been real in the first place. And love, real love, should never come at the cost of losing yourself. With tears streaming down my face, I started the engine and drove away. For good. I thought walking away would be the end. But the past has a cruel way of following you, especially when it's unfinished. A week after I left, an envelope arrived at the motel. No return address. Just my name written in shaky handwriting that I didn't recognize. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a letter. At first, I thought it was from him. Another apology, another desperate attempt to pull me back. But as I unfolded it, my hands trembling, I realized the truth. It wasn't from him. It was from her, Carla Benton. The letter was short, blunt, almost too painful in its honesty. I never stopped loving him, it began. Even after the divorce papers were signed, even after he moved on, I stayed close. I let him believe it was for the house, for the memories, but it wasn't. It was for him. I sank onto the bed, the words blurring through my tears. You were never the enemy, she wrote. You were just collateral damage in a story that never really ended. When he met you, he tried to be better. He wanted to be the man you believed he was. I saw it. I saw how he loved you. But the truth is, he was still broken. And broken men don't build new homes. They just haunt the ruins of old ones. At the bottom of the page, scrawled almost like an afterthought, were the words that shattered what was left of my heart. I'm the one who kept him tied to the house. I refused to sign it over. I refused to let go, not because of the house, but because I couldn't bear to let him be happy without me. I dropped the letter onto the bed, staring at it like it might catch fire. All this time, I thought he had been the architect of my ruin, but it wasn't just him. It was her too, her hands just as stained with betrayal as his. She hadn't just refused to move on. She had trapped him there, tethered him to the past, and by extension, trapped me too. I thought leaving would be the end of the story, but now I saw it for what it really was. I had never been part of their love story. I had been a casualty of their unfinished war. The next day, I packed my few belongings into the trunk of my car. No anger, no bitterness, just a hollow kind of acceptance. I didn't need explanations. I didn't need revenge. I needed freedom. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't running from the past. I was walking into my future, one step at a time, without them, without the weight of a house that was never truly mine, without a love that was never truly real. It's strange how the things you once begged to hold on to eventually become the things you're most grateful to have lost. I thought losing him would break me. I thought walking away from the house, the marriage, the dreams we painted together would leave me hollow forever. But life has a way of surprising you. I moved into a small apartment above a bookstore downtown. Nothing fancy, nothing grand, just four walls that were mine and mine alone. I planted flowers on the tiny balcony. I cooked dinners for one. I laughed real laughter for the first time in months. Some days the memories creep in, soft and unwelcome, but they no longer own me. He was a chapter, she was a lesson, and I am the story still being written. Sometimes love isn't enough to save us. Sometimes the greatest act of love is knowing when to let go. I don't hate them. I don't wish them pain. I simply wish them distance. And for myself, I wish peace. And for the first time in a long time, I know I'm going to be okay.